Permanently docked in Long Beach Harbor is the Queen Mary, a colossal ship that was bigger, faster, and more powerful than the Titanic. During the Second World War, she was retrofitted and became the fastest troop ship in the water, at speeds that could easily evade U-boats. Aside from holding a record for the most passengers ever transported on one vessel, she also carried British Prime Minister Winston Churchill across the Atlantic for many meetings. The ship also has a darker history, with many guests claiming to witness paranormal activity. Some claim to see the souls of crew members that met grim deaths down in the engine room, while others see apparitions of elegant women and lonely children that aimlessly roam the halls of the upper decks. Whether you believe in such things or not, the Queen Mary continues to be considered one of America's most haunted places. I'm joined today by Will Kane, the captain of the Queen Mary, as well as the ship's historian, and we are on board the historic Queen Mary itself. Captain, thank you so much for having us here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I want to ask a little bit about the background of this amazing ship. What is the history of the Queen Mary, and how did it come to be stationed in Long Beach?
The Queen Mary was originally owned and operated by the Cunard Line. Since 1839, Cunard had an agreement with the British government to haul mail back and forth from Europe to America. This is why she was called the RMS Queen Mary. It stood for Royal Mail Ship. Plans to begin the Queen Mary and her sister ship, the Queen Elizabeth, began back in 1926. They were to be the largest and fastest passenger liners ever built. Work began in 1930 at the John Brown Shipyard in Clydebank, Scotland, but due to the Great Depression, work stopped about a year later. Eventually, the British government offered Cunard a loan to finish building both of the ships if they would agree to merge with their rival shipping company, which was the White Star Line. So they took them up on the offer. It became the Cunard White Star Line. Work resumed on job number 534. That's all we were known as at that time. She was launched in September of 1934. She set sail on her maiden voyage, May 27th, 1936. And she continued passenger service between Southampton, England, and New York City until 1939, when war was declared on Germany. She was the first Cunard liner called up by the British Admiralty for active war duty as a troop ship. In March of 1940, she was drafted. She became a troop carrier, a hospital ship, and at the end of the war, she served as the bride and baby shuttle. She went back into passenger service in 1947, served another 20 years, known as the stateliest ship on the seas. In the early 1960s, all passenger liners began to lose money. Jet air travel was becoming the primary mode of transatlantic transportation, so Cunard decided to put her up for sale. And the largest bid came from the city of Long Beach, California, $3.45 million. She set sail on her last great cruise October 31st. She arrived here December 9th. It was a 39-day voyage because she's 8 feet too wide to fit through the Panama Canal. Oh. So she had to go down the coast of South America and around Cape Horn, crossing the equator twice in order to get here. Immediately upon arriving, they began transforming her from a luxury liner into a floating hotel, a tourist attraction, and a convention center. And we opened to the public in 1971. And in 1993, we were placed on the National Register of Historic Places with Historic Significance. It's a special title created just for us on that registry.
Amazing, and very much deserved. This is a wonderful place. But there is, reportedly anyway, a dark side, possibly. Many have reported kind of supernatural occurrences on board. So I'm wondering what the first known example that you're aware of such an occurrence aboard the Queen Mary was.
It didn't start until she was here. The rumors or the stories didn't start until she was here, so it was after 1967. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail. I think it had to do with the accident in the hatch door, number 13. I really think that is the incident that started the stories and the rumors that the Queen Mary's haunted. And I wouldn't say dark, that it's a dark side. I always tell people that we don't have ghosts aboard the ship, but we do seem to have a lot of angels.
So mostly beneficent spirits.
Yes, nothing evil is here.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
good to know.
Yeah.
I feel more secure now.
Yeah.
Well, that brings me nicely to my next question, which is indeed about the legend of Half Hatch Henry, as he's known today. What's the story behind his untimely death?
In 1966, there was an 18-year-old engineer slash fireman is the way the reports read, working in the engine room around hatch door number 13. And it was about 3:55 in the morning on a Sunday, and they hit a patch of fog going into Northern Ireland, close to Northern Ireland, and the captain ordered all of the watertight doors to be closed. And about 4:05, he noticed up at the bridge that hatch door number 13 was not closed properly. So they went down and they found the engineer crushed in the hatch door. Top half of him leaning on one side of the door, bottom half on the other side of the door. They pried the door open. They got him to the infirmary. He died 2 hours later without ever regaining consciousness, so they never really knew what happened exactly. But after the ship docked here, as soon as the construction started to turn her into a tourist attraction and a hotel and a convention center, construction workers and security people started hearing things and seeing someone in the engine room, a young man with a beard, and that was the description of the young man who was killed in the hatch door.
Wow, a tragic story, and he's been seen frequently ever since, I assume.
Yes.
Well, he's not alone aboard this ship in terms of the angels or spirits or whatever you want to call them. There's another famous or infamous one known as Dana, correct? This young girl in the cargo area. Now, what's her story?
There are several different names. You will find some of the psychics call her Jackie. There is a little girl that has been seen, and we believe it's the same apparition, especially around the swimming pool, the first-class swimming pool, in the cargo areas, sometimes in the windows. If you're off the ship and you look up at the windows on prom deck or some of the portals, people have claimed to see this little girl. We don't know. We have logs, and we would have to know if there were any tragedies aboard the ship. This is why I have taken issues with some of the psychics and paranormal researchers that have come aboard the ship. No one ever drowned in our swimming pool. That's one of the stories that goes along with this little girl, that she drowned in the swimming pool. No one was ever murdered aboard the ship. People did die. There were 51 recorded deaths through her passenger years, but that was heart attacks, strokes, people falling down the stairs during rough weather. But as far as who this little girl was, for sure, we don't know.
Fascinating. Well, we may have had just another interruption from the spirits on board right now. Wouldn't that be something if we caught something on film? But I'm wondering about another sort of creepy occurrence or mysterious legend, which is Room 340. Why is Room 340 closed off to guests?
The story behind that is it was opened as a hotel room in the beginning, from 71. And a few years after that, it was taken off the roster because the housekeepers were saying that they would go in, put fresh sheets on the bed, they'd go out to get towels, they'd come back in, the sheets were pulled off the bed and laying in the middle of the floor. The mirror would fog up when no one was in there or had been taking a shower. The water would turn on by itself. The lights would go off and on by itself. So the story is that they took it off the roster. And was not rented any longer.
Wow, it's pretty
to
creepy.
people.
Is there any origin behind it? I read something about a murder. That might be a salacious kind of...
There are stories, but they're not let's call them lore. I won't say that they're not true. They're just lore. There was a lore that there was a passenger who was found dead. He wasn't murdered. He was found dead in his bed in room B356 or something like that. And what they found out was through various refurbishments, they changed numbers of the cabins, and that room ended up being B340.
Interesting.
So that's the story behind that.
Well, we may never know the true source of it, but it's creepy stuff nonetheless. So with all those in mind, are there any other particularly strange or unexplainable happenings that you can share with us or that strike you as particularly fascinating?
I will say that there does seem to be an atmosphere here. Many of the psychics who have come to study aboard the ship have talked about residual energy. And they describe that as when you have a place where physical activity, the same physical activity happens over and over and over again. I mean, can you imagine how many people have walked up and down the stairwells of this ship? That activity gets embedded in the very environment or the atmosphere of the place, and that even after that physical activity has stopped, there will be moments where you will hear or see or feel little snippets of that activity going on. And that we get a lot of reports. People hearing faint strains of music, when they go past the ballrooms late at night. Conversations going on. People walking up and down the stairs. People will swear someone's walking with them or behind them, and there's no one there.
Footsteps overhead.
Footsteps overhead. Those sounded like children to
Oh,
me.
well. Maybe ghost children.
I just thought of, when you mentioned maybe we'd catch something on camera, we were doing an interview many years ago in the swimming pool, and the psychic who was being interviewed was talking to the host, and all of a sudden he started saying, wait a minute, I'm feeling something over here. And then they went on and continued with the thing. And when they got back to the studio and they played the tape, you could see along the floorboards of the wall this energy going. And I saw it. And I could only describe it as, when you're driving on the freeway on a very hot day, and there's that blurry kind of thing that's coming up from the heat in the pavement. That's what it looked like.
Wow.
And you could see it. As they were talking, you could see the stuff moving along like that.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow, well, that goes to show that there's definitely some kind of energy at work here.
And a lot of orbs.
Oh,
People
really?
get orbs in their pictures all the time, and that can happen anywhere.
Incredible. So it's manifesting itself in this light and phenomenon. So going back in time to October 2nd, 1942, there was a maritime tragedy that occurred involving this ship when it collided with the HMS Curaçao.
Curaçao.
Curaçao, okay.
Curaçao.
Is that I guess
That was
that's
one of her
Portuguese?
escort vessels. It happened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They were off the coast of Ireland. The Curaçao was not aware of the exact zigzag patterning that the Queen Mary was steering, and she attempted to cut in front of the Queen Mary just as the Queen Mary was turning into the direction of the Curaçao. And the force of the Queen Mary sliced that smaller vessel into 2 pieces, killing 338 of the 439-member crew.
Wow.
And because she was such a sought-after vessel during the war, she was under orders never to stop for any reason whatsoever. The 101 survivors of the Curaçao were rescued by other escort vessels who had been in the vicinity at that time.
It's quite a tragedy. And in the aftermath of that, have there been any kind of supernatural or reported occurrences revolving around that tragedy?
At the very forward end of the ship, down in the cargo holds, the closest you can get to the very tip, the very point of her bow, people have claimed to hear noises crashing, banging.
Well, one can imagine after such a horrific event,
Yeah.
there could be
Yeah.
some sort of lingering effects. So we've heard a lot about these spirits and different supernatural occurrences, but why do you think it is that the Queen Mary has been reported as home to so many of these things? Is it something to do with the ship's history, or is there some kind of psychological reason behind it?
She's 80 years old this year, and I don't think there's any building that lasts that long that probably does not accumulate a story or two about being haunted. I don't think it's unnatural at all. She was a very, very popular means of transportation, of travel for many, many people in all kinds of atmospheres, good, happy, joyous occasions, and also some very serious. A lot of men died here during the war. She was a hospital ship. In July of 1943, she carried 16,683 soldiers to the European front. That still stands as the largest number of human beings ever transported on one vessel in the history of the world.
Amazing.
Winston Churchill said we were able to win World War II in the amount of time that we did because of the performance of this ship. That's a pretty powerful statement to be able to make.
Absolutely.
And
So
we can make that.
it changes the course of world history
Right.
practically
Right.
based on the ship.
Right. A lot of people also find out after they've been here that they have some connection back in their family history. They find out their grandfather sailed during the war, or their grandmother came over as one of the war brides and things like that. So she holds a very, very special place in the hearts of not only Americans, but people around the world.
Fantastic. Now, you've talked a lot about other people's experiences, but I'm wondering if you yourself buy into these theories, and have you witnessed personally any kind of unexplainable phenomena?
Oh, and this is going to go on film too. Like I said before, we don't. I believe we don't have ghosts. We have angels. I do feel that there is something very special in the atmosphere here because of everything that has happened. When you think of the amount of human energy that has passed through the hull of this ship in 80 years, that's bound to color the situation. And I did have one episode. I was here, I would say maybe my third year, and I saw the little girl in one of the windows on prom deck.
Amazing. What did she look like to you?
She was a blonde girl with curls. She had something on her head, a bonnet or a hat of some kind, lots of lace or frilly looking dress, period looking dress, which is what I noticed. And the reason I noticed her was because she was staring straight out. She wasn't looking down at anybody on the wharf. She was just staring straight out, and she had one hand like this up here in the corner of the window and one hand down here, and she was just staring out like that.
It's pretty eerie stuff.
Yeah, and then in a split second, she was gone.
Well, then we have firsthand testimony as to the supernatural prowess of this ship. Well, Captain, as all your years aboard this vessel, what have you found to be the main thing that brings people back year after year to experience the Queen Mary?
I think it's a lot of things. I think people come with their families. I think they create memories, almost traditional, with their own families when they come here, and they come back to continue that. We have many people that are married right here in the wedding chapel. That there's one couple that comes back every year on their anniversary to renew their vows. You know, they stand right here where they were married. It's a very romantic place, as well as filled with history. And I think that's what people come back for.
It's absolutely. Being here is just an incredible privilege. It's so evocative. The architecture, everything about it.
She's referred to as an international historic treasure. And I don't think there's a better phrase coined to describe her. I think that says it perfectly. She's an international historic treasure. Our passengers, or today, our guests, are from all over the world. I would say a good 50% of our hotel guests are from other places than the United States.
That's right.
Yeah.
And some of them may be from beyond the world of the living, as it turns out.
Nice.
We may have had some
Guests
encounters.
who don't check out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Captain Kane, that's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. But thank you so much again for being on my show.
My pleasure. Thank
and
you.
allowing us onto this incredible historic treasure. It's just been a wonderful experience. And for everyone watching, thank you again for tuning in. This has been another installment of Dark Times. Please join us next week as we delve into yet another unsolved mystery. Have a good one, everyone.